Hey everybody! Today we're going to write our own equations of circles. So earlier this afternoon, we learned how to use the equation of a circle, and today we're going to be making our own. So it says, recall the standard form of the equation of a circle, and hopefully you remember it is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, where hk is the center and r is my radius. So for questions 1 through 6, it says write the equation of a circle in standard form given the center and the radius. So for number 1, the center is 5, 3, and h is 5, k is 3, and my radius r is 2. So if I'm plugging it into the formula, it's x minus h squared, so x minus h is 5 squared plus y minus k, and k is 3 squared, equals my radius squared. Okay, but instead of 2 squared, I'm actually going to write 4. Okay, number 3 says my center hk is -2, -11, and my diameter is 18. So don't let that trick you. If the diameter is 18, the radius is half that, 9. Okay, so I have x minus h squared, so don't write this down yet. X minus, and h is -2 squared, plus y minus k is -11 squared equals 9 squared, which is 81. So notice I wrote a double negative, right? Because it's x minus h, and h is negative. So this double negative becomes positive 2 and positive 11. So it's actually x plus 2 squared plus y plus 11 squared equals 81. Okay, so let's try number 5. My center hk is -4, 0. My radius is the square root of 47. Okay, so x minus h, -4, squared plus y minus 0 squared equals the square root of 47 squared. So let's clean this up a little bit. So x minus -4 squared becomes x plus 4 squared. Y minus 0 squared is just y squared. And the square root of 47 squared is simply 47, right? Because the squared and the square root cancel each other. Okay, so you should be able to do numbers 2, 4, and 6, no problem. Okay, so if we're given the center and the circumference or the area, this time I'm going to try number 8 and 10, and I'll leave 7 and 9 for you. Okay, so if I'm given the circumference equals 17 pi, let's recall the circumference formula is pi times diameter. So that means that my diameter, right, if I'm saying the circumference is 17 times pi, okay, my diameter would be 17, which means my radius is half of 17, which is 8.5. Okay, so let's plug it into the formula. X minus h, which is 9 squared, plus y minus k, 12 squared, equals 8.5 squared. So I'll get out my calculator. 8.5 squared is 72.25. Alright, I'll scroll down a little. Number 10. Area equals 361 pi. So I'm going to say 361 pi equals pi radius squared. Okay, and I want radius by itself, so I'll divide both sides by pi to get radius squared. I'm left with 361 equals r squared. And then we know that to get r by itself, we take the square root of both sides. So I'll take the square root of r squared to get r equals the square root of 361. I'm pretty sure is 19, but we'll just double check. 19. R is 19. Okay, so number 10. X minus h squared plus y minus k negative 2 squared equals r squared. Well, I guess if we took the square root of 361 to find the radius, then r squared is 361. Okay, so I'm just going to clean up the y minus negative 2 to be plus 2, and we're good. So you guys can try 7 and 9. Number 12 says, given a graph. All right, so given a graph, I think that the easiest way to do this is to find the center. We can either do it from the top and bottom of a circle or the the horizontal center. The best thing to do is to cut it in half and find the center that way. So it looks like our center is negative 1, 3. Negative 1, 3. Okay, so that was pretty easy because it's on a grid. And so my radius is going to be, well, I can count, right? So it looks like 3, 6, 7. I'll count backwards too, just to make sure. 3, 6, 7. Okay, so the HK is negative 1, 3, and R is 7. Okay, so X minus H is negative 1 squared plus Y minus K, 3 squared, equals 7 squared, and 7 squared is 49. So I'll clean up my double negative to make it a plus. X plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 49. Hopefully you guys think this is easy. So now they give us even less information and they want the same thing. So we're still writing the equation of a circle, but this time they only give us the center and a point on the circle. So it sounds like we're going to have to use the distance formula to find the length of the radius, right? Because that's the r squared in the equation of a circle. So distance equals square root of the difference of my x values, x2 minus x1 squared, plus the difference of my y's, y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, and recall midpoint. So midpoint is equal to the average of my x values, x1 plus x2 squared, divided by 2, and the average of my y's. Okay, and that's a coordinate, right? An ordered pair. So let's try to, I'll leave you guys the left side 13 and 15, and I'll do 14 and 16. So number 14, they give us a center. My HK is 1, negative 5. Okay, and the point of the circle, on the circle, is negative 7, negative 13. So I'm going to use the distance formula to find the distance between the 2 points. So distance equals the square root of. I always set it up first. I don't know if you guys have noticed. So I'll do -7 minus 1 squared plus -13 minus -5 squared. So that's just using the 2 points that they gave us. So that is the square root of -8 squared plus -13 plus 5 is -8 as well, squared. So 64 plus 64 is 128. And the square root of 128, let's just leave it like that. I think that's probably better. So r equals the square root of 128. Okay, so plugging in to the equation of a circle, x minus h is 1, squared plus y minus k, -5 squared equals. Okay, and this is another circumstance like number 5. We just did one of these. I have the square root of 128 squared. Okay, so I'll clean it up, right? The square root of 128 squared, the squared cancels the square root. So it just leaves me with 128. And I'll clean up the double negative. It's actually x minus 1 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 128. Hopefully I'm doing a good job in explaining this. If you have any questions tomorrow, just ask. Okay, so number 16, I have my center is -2, 0. The point on the circle is -9, -4. So I'll find the distance to find the radius. So -2 minus -9 squared and 0 minus -4 squared. So that is the square root of -2 plus 9 is 7 squared plus 4 squared. Square root of 35. Not 35. What am I thinking? 7 squared is 49. And 4 squared is 16. So this is the square root of 49 plus 16, which is 65. I'll just double check. 49 plus 16 is 65. Okay. And I leave it in the square root. Now I have my HK, my center is so x minus h -2 squared plus y minus k, which is 0 squared equals the square root of 65 squared. And I'll clean that up to be x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals square root of 65 squared is just 65. All right. So in set 5, they make it a tiny bit harder by not giving you the center. So don't let that trick you. Okay, you still are going to have to find the radius. So here's my radius. You got to find r. And you got to find hk. So how are you going to do that? Well, they give you 2 points on your circle. Okay, and it's on the circle. So we can find the midpoint, and that will be my center. So the midpoint is the center. Okay, and then we find the radius by finding the distance. from the center to one of the points. Okay, and the point that you choose is totally up to you. I'm going to choose whatever I feel like will make it easier. So finding the midpoint, right, we use a midpoint formula. The average of my x's, that's 6 plus negative 2 divided by 2. And the average of my y is negative 13 plus 15 divided by 2. Okay, so 6 minus 2 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Negative 13 plus 15 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so my midpoint, my center, or my HK, is 2, 1. Okay, so to find the radius, we got to find the distance between the center and one of my points. So I'm just going to pick the point that I feel like will be the best. It actually doesn't matter, but I'm going to choose the first one. So plugging it in. 6 minus 2 squared, that's x2 minus x1 squared, plus negative 13 minus 1 squared. So we'll simplify that. 6 minus 2 is 4 squared. Negative 13 minus 1 is negative 14 squared. So that is the square root of 16 plus 14 times 14 is 196. Or negative 14 times negative 14 is 196. And if we add those two things, square root of 212. So that's the distance of my radius. Okay, so x minus h. H is 2 squared plus y minus k, 1 squared, equals the square root of 212 squared. And remember, the squared cancels the square root. So that is just the square root, or sorry, that is just 212. All right. Hopefully you guys think this is easy. It's all math that you know how to do, so really we're just plugging into a formula. Number 20, the midpoint is the average of my x's, 8 plus negative 10 divided by 2. And the average of my y's, 7 plus negative 13 divided by 2. 8 minus 10 is negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. 7 minus 13 is 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Okay. And so that is the center, my HK. And I'll pick the 8 and the 7. I think that'll be easier to work with for finding the distance. Radius is equal to the distance. So I'll do negative 1 minus 8 squared plus negative 3 minus 7 squared. Negative 9 squared plus negative 10 squared. 81 and 100. I'll make my square root longer. So the square root of 181. Okay. So x minus h negative 1 squared plus y minus k, negative 3 squared, equals the square root of 181 squared. Okay, I'm not going to go through the process again. The square root cancels the squared, so that's 181. And I'll just clean up my double negatives. And we're done. So you guys have about 10 problems to do on your own. So good luck, and please be ready for your test tomorrow. Okay, I hope you have a great night. Bye.